Sir, please, I'm begging you, don't leave this house today. Henry stopped in his tracks. He had just stepped into the hallway, one hand adjusting his wristwatch, the other holding his car keys. But now, standing in front of him, blocking his path, was Sarah, the housemaid. She knelt on the cold tiles, her eyes red, her hands clasped together. She was shaking. "What's this?" Henry asked quietly. Sarah looked up, her voice trembling. "Please, sir, don't go. Something terrible will happen if you step out today." Henry blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" "I had a dream last night, sir. You were wearing this same outfit. You entered your car and didn't come back." Her voice broke. There was blood everywhere. People were shouting your name. "Please, don't go." Henry stared at her. The air in the room suddenly felt heavy. This wasn't one of those silly dreams people laughed about. Sarah looked genuinely terrified. His phone vibrated in his pocket. Joe again. He was already late for the investors' meeting. Billions were riding on this deal. "Get up," Henry said, his tone low. "This isn't the time." "Please, sir," Sarah whispered, pressing her hands to the floor. "I know I'm just a maid, but I couldn't stay quiet. If I let you go and something happens, I'll never forgive myself." Just then, heels clicked on the staircase. Madame Stella. She descended slowly, her robe tied tightly around her waist, her face already glowing with makeup. She paused when she saw Sarah on the floor. "What's going on here?" she asked coldly. "She's saying I shouldn't leave the house," Henry replied, not taking his eyes off Sarah. Stella stepped closer and folded her arms. "Why?" Sarah didn't move. "Ma, I had a dream, a clear one. If he leaves today, he won't come back alive." Stella scoffed. "This is why I said we need to let this girl go. Now she's turning into a prophet." "Stella," Henry started. "No, let me talk," she snapped. "You have an important meeting this morning. Money is involved. Contracts are waiting. And now a housemaid is stopping you with nonsense dreams? This is a joke." Sarah bowed her head lower. "I'm sorry, Ma, but I had to say it." "Get out of the way," Stella ordered. Henry raised his hand. "Wait!" Stella turned sharply. "Wait for what?" He was quiet, his eyes still on Sarah. There was something in her voice, something honest. She wasn't stuttering. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She looked like someone who had seen something she couldn't unsee. Then it happened, that quiet warning deep in his chest. No noise, no drama. Just a strong sense. If you step out today, you'll regret it. Henry stepped back. He walked to the center table, dropped his car keys beside his phone, and turned away from the door. "I'm not going." Sarah gasped softly, still kneeling. Stella's mouth dropped. "You're not... what?" "I'm not going." "For God's sake, Henry." "I said I'm not going." Henry walked into the living room and sat down, his hands folded, staring at the marble tiles as if they held answers. Stella shook her head in disbelief. "You're letting this girl manipulate you over a dream." "She's not manipulating me," he said quietly. "Something just doesn't feel right." Stella hissed, turned, and marched back upstairs, grumbling to herself. Sarah slowly stood up, wiped her face, and picked up the cup of water she had left earlier on the table. Her hands were still shaking. Henry sat in silence, wondering why his heart was pounding so fast, and why the fear in Sarah's eyes felt more real than anything he'd felt in years. What he didn't know was that this was just the beginning. Henry Lawrence wasn't just rich, he was respected. He didn't chase social media fame. No unnecessary noise, no wild interviews or loud parties. But in every real estate circle across Nigeria, his name carried weight. He co-owned one of the most powerful property firms in Lagos, Crestrock Real Estate Group, alongside his longtime best friend and business partner, Joe Ritchie. Together, they had built the company from scratch. From cold calls in a small Yaba office to signing billionaire deals in Banana Island. Henry was a strategist, calm, calculating. Joe was a showman, charming, aggressive. People admired their friendship. But only Henry knew the truth. Behind the laughter and champagne, they were nothing alike. Still, the company boomed. Money flowed. Life was sweet. And then there was home. To the outside world, Henry had it all: a beautiful wife, Stella, slim, stunning, always glowing like a magazine cover. A modern mansion in Lekki with a gym no one used, scented candles in every room, and enough designer shoes to open a boutique. They were the perfect couple. Always smiling in photos, always receiving compliments. God really bless you too. But behind closed doors, a different story. Henry had married Stella out of love, real love. They met at a luxury store. She asked if navy blue matched gray. He answered without blinking. She laughed. He asked for her number. But love didn't stay. By their second year of marriage, it was clear Stella didn't care for companionship. She cared for comfort. She didn't cook, didn't clean, didn't want questions. She wanted space. And she hated housemaids. In less than a year, she had fired 6. All for small things. She opened the curtains too wide. She breathes too loud. She walks like a market woman. Each time, Henry would come home to a packed bag and a new face. He tried to complain once. "I'm not running a school," Stella snapped. "If I don't like someone, they leave." So Henry stopped arguing. He focused on work, money, peace. Then one Friday, the last maid left without notice. Henry came home to cold lunch and unfolded clothes. The house was silent. Stella was sleeping in the spa room. That evening, she announced, "I found a new one. She arrives tomorrow." And that was how Sarah entered the house. Quiet, small, brown-skinned, hair in neat cornrows. She wore a plain gown and flat slippers. No earrings, no drama. She greeted everyone properly and went straight to work. Within hours, she had swept, mopped, washed the guest toilet, and arranged the pantry, all without being told. She didn't ask for anything, didn't touch what wasn't hers. She moved like someone who didn't want to be noticed. But Henry noticed, not in a wrong way, but in a curious way. Most maids watched TV, gossiped, pretended to be busy. Sarah didn't. She woke before sunrise, ironed clothes like a hotel professional, cleaned windows without being told. Even Stella, who never complimented anyone, admitted one night, "She's not as annoying as the last ones." That was the highest praise Henry had ever heard from his wife. Days passed. Weeks passed. Henry came home one evening to a sparkling house, hot food, folded clothes, and silence. No shouting, no complaints, just peace. He looked at Sarah once and thought, "Finally, someone who brings peace into this house." But what Henry didn't know was this: peace was never the reason Sarah was sent into his life. Henry sat in the living room, silent. His phone and car keys lay on the table. The house was quiet except for the hum of the AC. He should have been at the office by now, shaking hands, signing contracts, smiling for cameras. Instead, he sat still, staring at nothing, feeling like he'd avoided something he couldn't explain. The image of Sarah, kneeling, shaking, begging, replayed in his head. "If you step out today, you won't come back alive." At first, it sounded ridiculous. Now, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had been waiting for him outside that gate. His phone lit up. It was Joe. Henry sighed and answered. "Guy, what's going on?" Joe's voice was sharp. "You didn't show. The investors are livid." "I had to cancel," Henry said quietly. "Cancel? Do you know what was on the table today? This deal was gold." "I know," Henry said. "Talk to me. What's happening?" Joe asked. Henry hesitated. He didn't know how to explain it. Then, another call. It was his office secretary. He switched lines. "Hello, sir." Her voice shook. "Sean, your driver has been in an accident." Henry sat up straight. "What?" "On 3rd Mainland Bridge. A truck lost control. Hit your car, the Lexus you usually use. It's somersaulted. He's in the hospital, unconscious. We thought you were inside." Henry lowered the phone slowly and stared at the floor. The exact car, the exact road, the exact time he was meant to leave. What if he hadn't listened? What if he'd brushed it off? The silence in the house suddenly felt loud. Footsteps interrupted his thoughts. Stella appeared, phone in hand. So, you're just sitting here all day? Henry didn't look at her. There was an accident. She raised a brow. Okay. Sean, my driver, got into an accident. A truck hit him and is lying unconscious in the hospital. Her hand froze mid-scroll. And you think that means what? If I'd gone out, I might not be here. Henry said. She scoffed. Now you're making this a spiritual story? Accidents happen every day in Lagos. Henry looked at her. You're not even shaken. Why should I be? You're standing here, aren't you? He stared at her face, calm, cold, no worry, no relief. Something shifted in his chest. I'm keeping her, he said. Stella frowned. Keeping who? The maid. No. She needs to go, Stella said angrily. She saved my life, Henry said. She caused drama. Stella snapped. She has no right telling you what to do. This is my house. This is my house, too. His voice was low but final. Stella froze. The room went quiet. Stella blinked, then turned slowly and walked away, leaving behind the smell of perfume and tension. Henry sat back down, hands pressed together. He wasn't thinking about the maid. He was thinking about something deeper, something wrong. He didn't have proof yet, but he could feel it. Something in his life wasn't as it seemed. The tension in the house didn't fade. If anything, it grew thicker each day. Henry stopped speaking as much. He watched more than he talked. He watched how Stella barely looked at him unless she was complaining. He watched how quickly she changed the subject when the accident came up. He watched how she avoided walking past Sarah, like guilt lived in a shadow. But he didn't say anything. Not yet. Instead, he started asking quiet questions. A few days after the accident, something happened. Henry was in the dining room, flipping through his tablet. Stella had stepped out to answer a call. Sarah came in to clear the plates. At first, she didn't speak. Then, just above a whisper, she said, "So." Henry looked up. She bent slightly, pretending to pick up a dropped napkin. "Please don't sign any documents this week." He frowned. "Why?" Sarah's voice dropped lower. "I had another dream. A clear one. I saw papers. You signed them. Soon after, everything collapsed. You lost your company. Your accounts were frozen. There were policemen. Sir, you were handcuffed." Henry stiffened. She added, "If you sign anything this week, you won't just lose money. You may end up in jail for something you didn't do." Before he could ask more, Stella walked back in. Sarah picked up the tray and left quietly. But the words stayed. They didn't just stay. They sank deep. Henry didn't forget. 2 days later, Joe came by the house. He arrived in his usual loud style, brush waves, fresh cologne, big grin. "My guy," he shouted, pulling Henry into a hug. "Thank God you weren't in that car. That accident was brutal." Henry gave a small smile. "Let me guess," Joe continued. "That maid's still here? The one with the prophecy?" Henry nodded. Joe laughed. "Since when do you listen to dreams?" "I don't ignore warnings anymore," Henry said calmly. Joe raised an eyebrow but didn't push. "Anyway, the Dubai deal's still alive. We just need your signature." "Send the documents," Henry said. Joe grinned. "That's what I like to hear." But later that night, when the documents arrived, Henry's body tensed as he read them. Something wasn't right. The land value was lower than agreed. The payout account wasn't one he recognized. Then he remembered Sarah's words. "You may end up in jail for something you didn't do." Henry didn't sign. He locked the file in his drawer. A quiet investigation began. Henry contacted a friend in finance. What they found was worse than expected. Joe had been stealing company money for 2 years. Large sums, hidden under fake project names. Offshore accounts. Careful eyes. This wasn't just betrayal. It was criminal. And Henry wasn't just being betrayed in business. Stella began pushing harder to get Sarah fired. "She's too comfortable," she snapped one morning, slamming a drawer. "Too quiet. I don't trust her." Henry didn't look up. "She's efficient." He said, "She's disrespectful." Stella yelled. "No, she's disciplined," Henry said. Stella folded her arms. She's leaving. Henry finally met her eyes. She's staying. You're choosing a maid over me. I'm choosing peace. That night, Stella locked herself in the guest room. She paced, fumed, then called Joe. He answered, tired. What now? I can't do this anymore, she said, voice cracking. I'm suffocating. What happened? He won't fire that girl. She's ruining everything. Joe sighed. She's just a maid. No, she's a curse. She watches us. Every plan we make. He avoids it because of her. Joe was quiet. Stella kept going. You told me to marry him. Said we'd take the company, access the funds. Years of planning. And now what? We're stuck. We're still on track. We're not, she snapped. You sent armed men to intercept him on Admiral Way. Remember? They waited for hours. And what happened? He took another route because she warned him. Joe exhaled. It's like she knows. I'm tired, Stella whispered. I hate living here. I hate pretending to love him. I hate all of this. You love me, Joe said softly. Yes, she admitted. That's why I did this. But if nothing changes soon, I'm walking away. Saturday evening came quiet and slow. Henry was on the balcony, going through audit reports on his tablet, when Stella walked into the living room wearing a fitted travel gown. Her scarf was loosely tied around her braids, and her nails were freshly painted. She stood near the staircase, casually checking her phone. I'll be traveling tomorrow morning, she said. Henry didn't look up. Where to? Abiacuta. Daddy hasn't been feeling well. I need to check on him. He nodded slowly. All right. I should be back Monday. Okay. She waited for more questions, maybe a hug, a safe trip, anything. But Henry simply returned to his screen. The silence made her uneasy, but she smiled and walked away. Henry didn't move. He showed no emotion, but inside, he was already making a call. Follow her quietly. Don't lose sight. Don't interfere. Just send me updates. The next morning, she left the house at 7:15 a.m. She carried her designer handbag, wore a soft smile, then kissed Henry lightly on the cheek and waved goodbye. By 9:03 a.m., the first update came in. She hadn't gone to Abiacuta. She drove straight to Victoria Island and checked into the Radisson Blu Anchorage Hotel, room 406. Name on the register, Mrs. Helen Lucas. Henry read the message without flinching. By 9:47 a.m., the second update came. Joe arrived, cap pulled low, sunglasses on, simple black polo shirt. He didn't check in. He went straight upstairs to the same room. Henry stared at the photo, then leaned back slowly. No shock, no panic. The truth had been beating in his chest for weeks. This was only confirmation. They didn't come out all day. By 6:20 p.m., Henry arrived at the hotel in a dark SUV. He didn't tell his driver why. He didn't need to. He stepped out calmly and walked in. The receptionist greeted him with a smile. He didn't smile back. Room 406. She hesitated. Henry brought out his wallet and dropped 2 crisp bundles of notes. I won't be long. She swallowed hard and handed him the spare key. He didn't rush. He didn't knock. He opened the door. And there they were. Stella, in a white bathrobe, standing near the minibar, holding a glass of wine. Joe, shirtless on the couch, scrolling through his phone. They both looked up at the same time. Everything froze. The wine glass slipped slightly in Stella's hand. Joe stood up too quickly. Henry didn't say a word. He stepped in, looked at both of them, one after the other, then gently closed the door behind him. Stella opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Joe tried to smile. Guy! Henry raised one hand. Don't. Joe froze. Stella's lip trembled. Henry, I can explain. Don't lie, Henry said quietly. Not here. She looked at him like he was a stranger. You followed me. I stopped trusting you 2 months ago, he said, voice low and clear. Now I know why. Joe stepped forward. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think, Henry said. And worse. A long silence followed. Henry turned to Stella. You married me for this. Her eyes burned. You never saw me. You were always married to your company. And you were always married to my account, he shot back. You and your business partner. Stella flinched. Henry took one last look at them. I hope it was worth it. Then he turned, opened the door, and left. No noise, no drama. Just the silence of a man who had finally seen the truth. That night, Henry sat alone in his study. He didn't cry. He didn't break. He called his lawyer. Prepare the divorce papers. Then he called his accountant. Begin the process to buy out Joe's shares. Immediately. For 2 days, he didn't eat. He couldn't do anything. He sat in his beautiful mansion, but every polished surface mocked him. Every photo on the wall reminded him how foolish love could be. When given to liars, the pain didn't come with tears. It came with silence, the kind that wrapped itself around his chest and refused to let go. His wife was gone. His best friend was dead to him. And Sarah, the maid, was still there, sweeping corners, folding bedsheets, serving food he barely touched. The day the divorce papers arrived, Henry didn't flinch. Stella didn't even show up. She sent her lawyer with a message. Tell him I agree to everything. Just give me my peace. Her peace, after trying to kill him, after scheming with a man she'd slept with behind his back, after lying beside him every night while plotting his end. Henry signed the papers with steady hands. But the fire in his chest was another story. That night, he sat alone in the dark. The chandelier was on. The curtains were open. But the house felt like a coffin. He had everything, and nothing. Then Sarah walked in. She didn't knock, didn't tiptoe. She entered the living room the way light enters darkness, quietly, but impossible to ignore. I'm leaving tomorrow, she said, voice soft but firm. Henry looked up from the couch, his throat tight. Why? She didn't blink. My assignment here is over. He stared at her. Of all the people in his life, she was the one who hadn't lied, the one who saw the traps and warned him, the one who risked her job, her comfort, even her life, for him. You don't have to go, he said, his voice cracking. You're the only person who hasn't hurt me. I know, she said gently, but I wasn't sent to stay. I was sent to save. Henry stood slowly, walking toward her. His heart was heavy. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. So she continued. If you had signed those documents, you would have lost your company, your name, your freedom. You'd be in jail while the people who planned your death kissed over breakfast. His jaw clenched. She took a deep breath. But you didn't sign. You stayed. You listened. That means you're ready. Ready for what? To start again, she said. This time, with your eyes open. They stared at each other. Then Sarah did something strange. She smiled. Not a goodbye smile. A you'll be fine smile. Live right, she said, backing toward the door. Trust slowly. Love carefully. Watch everyone. She turned, opened the door, and was gone. Henry stood in the doorway, the wind brushing past him like a whisper. He didn't chase her. He didn't cry. But inside, something was breaking and healing at the same time. He walked back into the living room, picked up the wedding photo of him and Stella, and stared at it for 5 seconds. Then he smashed it against the floor. The glass shattered, just like the lie. He bent down, picked up a shard, and looked at his reflection, cut, bruised, but awake. For the first time in years, he smiled, not because everything was fine, but because the storm was over and he had survived. It took a full year, a year of silence, of starting over, of carefully rebuilding a life that had been built on betrayal. Henry immersed himself in Crest Rock, channeling all his energy into the company that had once been his pride. He restructured from the ground up, removing every trace of corruption, replacing every employee who had ever bowed to Joe's influence. He expanded the business with a new branch in Abuja, bringing in fresh young talent. He said no to bribes and shady deals. Slowly, he became the good man he'd always wanted to be. As time passed, the pain faded. He started taking walks again. He began to enjoy meals. Real smiles came back, ones he didn't have to force. And when love came knocking again, it didn't come loud. It came gently, through a woman he met at a charity auction. She didn't care about his last name or his balance sheet. She cared about books, children, and the quiet things. He didn't rush it. He didn't announce it. But one evening, under the stars, when he held her hand, he knew, this time, it was real. Somewhere across town, a small black car pulled up in front of a duplex. Cracked pillars and tension in the walls. Sarah stepped out, wearing a plain gown and flat shoes, her hair neatly packed, her face calm. She rang the bell. A tired-looking woman opened the door, eyes swollen from days of crying. The woman looked confused. "Are you the lawyer?" "No," Sarah said. "I'm the housemaid." Inside that home, a husband was on the verge of throwing away his marriage, all because of a secretary who had wrapped herself around his world. The woman knew. The man denied it. The marriage was dying. But Sarah had arrived, and wherever she entered, lies lost, and truth rose. Moral of the story: trust is fragile. Betrayal doesn't always come with a warning, and love without honesty is a beautiful lie waiting to collapse. But when you listen to quiet voices, pay attention to your instincts, and choose peace over pride, truth will rise, and healing will find its way back to you. Always watch closely, because not everyone in your corner is on your side. Thanks for watching. Make sure to share your thoughts in the comments. What did you learn and love about the story? Give it a thumbs up and share it with your loved ones. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to do so. See you in the next story. Bye.